Breathe in, and now breathe out. Let the noise of your modern world fade into a distant hum, a forgotten echo. We are not going where you think we are going. There will be no clash of swords, no grand pronouncements from emperors draped in silk. Instead, you find yourself standing on a path of packed earth, cool and damp beneath your bare feet. The air is heavy with the scent of wood smoke, wet soil, and the faint, ever-present hint of livestock. This is the world as it was, a place governed not by grand armies, but by the quiet tyranny of your next-door neighbor, by the weight of 1,000 unspoken agreements that hold your small world together and could just as easily tear your life apart. The greatest danger here is not the wolf in the woods, but the misstep on the path, the words spoken out of turn, the simple, catastrophic mistake of being different. The morning breaks not with a gentle glow, but with a damp gray mist that clings to your skin and clothes like a shroud. You can hear the world waking up around you. A dog barks, its call muffled by the fog. A rooster, somewhere nearby, crows with an irritating persistence. You pull a rough-spun wool cloak tighter around your shoulders, the fabric scratching against your neck. The chill seeps into your bones, a familiar ache that tells you another day has begun. You step out of your small, dark dwelling, and the first rule of the day is already upon you. Your chickens, a small flock of dusty, dim-witted birds, are pecking aimlessly in the mud. The problem is, one of them, the bold one with the crooked feather, is dangerously close to your neighbor's herb patch. A modern person might call this a minor property dispute. Here, it is a potential catastrophe. That herb patch is not just a collection of plants. It is a declaration of territory, a line drawn in the mud, with the silent, unyielding force of tradition. Your neighbor, a woman whose face seems permanently etched with disapproval, guards those herbs with the ferocity of a dragon guarding its hoard. Should your chicken dare to nibble on a single leaf of her precious mint, it is not merely a matter of a lost plant, it is an insult. It is a violation of the unwritten constitution of this village, a document that exists only in the collective, unforgiving memory of its people. The penalty could range from the loss of the bird to a public shaming, or even a fine of 3 bushels of barley you simply do not have. So you spend your first waking moments, not in quiet contemplation, but in a low-stakes, high-stress game of chicken herding. As the sun climbs higher, it burns away the mist, revealing a sky the color of faded linen. The day warms, and the smells of the village intensify. You make your way to the central market, a chaotic swirl of sound, color, and odor. The air is thick with the sweet smell of baking bread, the sharp tang of goat cheese, the earthy aroma of root vegetables, and the ever-present, overpowering stench of human and animal waste. People jostle past you, their voices a low babble of gossip, haggling, and complaints. Here, in this public square, the tripwires are everywhere. You watch a trader from a distant town unroll a bolt of cloth. The color is a deep, rich purple, and a hush falls over the small crowd around him. He does not understand. He sees only a color. You and everyone else born here see a crime in progress. That specific shade of purple is reserved. It is not for you, or for him, or for anyone who is not the local magistrate. To wear it is an act of audacious rebellion, a silent claim to power you do not possess. It is the ancient equivalent of walking into the boss's office, putting your feet up on his desk and lighting one of his cigars. The consequences are not a sternly worded memo. They are public and painful. The merchant will be lucky to escape with a fine that will ruin him and the confiscation of his goods. You avert your eyes, pretending to be intensely interested in a basket of lumpy potatoes. In this world, even looking at the wrong thing for too long can be misconstrued. You feel the collective gaze of the village, a silent, constant audit of your every move, your every expression. A sudden shift in the wind brings the smell of rain. The sky, once pale, now darkens to the color of a bruise. The first drops are fat and cold, landing on the dusty ground with a series of soft thuds. People scurry for cover, and the vibrant chaos of the market dissolves in moments. You find shelter under the leaky awning of a butcher's stall, the smell of raw meat and iron now mingling with the clean scent of the downpour. The sound of the rain becomes a steady, rhythmic drumming on the thatched roofs all around you, a lulling, hypnotic beat. It is a moment of forced stillness, a pause in the day's anxieties. If this sound brings you a sense of peace, feel free to like this story, but only if you truly feel it. The rain washes the dust from the air, but it cannot wash away the tension that permeates this place. The shower passes as quickly as it arrived, leaving the world glistening and damp. As you step back out into the square, a new procession commands the village's attention. It is a funeral. A family is carrying one of their own to his final resting place. Here, another invisible law takes hold. You must show sorrow. Your face must be a mask of solemn respect. But there is a line, a terribly fine one, between appropriate grief and dangerous theatrics. To weep too loudly, to wail with too much abandon, is to be accused of performative mourning. It is seen as an attempt to steal the sorrow that rightfully belongs to the immediate family, an act of profound social arrogance. You watch a distant cousin of the deceased sob into her hands, and you can see the elders exchanging subtle, disapproving glances. She has crossed the line. Her grief is now a public offense. As evening approaches, the sky bleeds into shades of orange and deep violet, colors that, thankfully, no one has forbidden. You return to your home, a single room that smells of smoke, damp earth, and boiled cabbage. The only light comes from the flickering flames in your central hearth, casting long, dancing shadows that make the familiar space seem strange and alive. You sit on a low stool, the wood worn smooth from years of use, and listen to the sounds of the village settling down for the night. The rules have followed you home. You must not sweep the dust from your floor out the door after sunset, lest you sweep away your good fortune. You must not let your fire burn past a certain hour, a rule enforced less by law and more by the passive-aggressive comments your neighbors will make the next morning. Later you venture to the tavern. The air inside is warm and thick, a palpable substance heavy with the smell of spilled ale, unwashed bodies, and roasting meat. It is crowded and loud, a welcome respite from the quiet scrutiny of the day. But even here, in this place of supposed camaraderie, the tripwires are coiled and ready. You accept a wooden cup of bitter, watery ale and find a place on a bench. A man begins to sing a familiar tune, but he is quickly shushed by his friends. That song, a jaunter tune about a foolish goat, also happens to be a thinly veiled satire of the magistrate's grandfather. To sing it here is to invite serious trouble. You take a slow sip of your ale, the rough wood of the cup scraping against your lip. You listen to the conversations, careful to contribute nothing of substance. Finally, you walk back through the darkened, muddy lanes. The moon is hidden by clouds, and the only light comes from the faint glow of embers escaping from a few chimneys. The village is asleep, but it does not feel at rest. It feels like a creature holding its breath. Every shadow could hide a threat, every darkened doorway an observer. You think of the day, the wandering chicken, the forbidden purple, the overly enthusiastic mourner, the censored song. You have survived. You have successfully navigated the labyrinth of absurd unwritten laws that govern your existence. You slide the wooden bolt on your door, the sound echoing in the profound silence. As you lie down on your straw mattress, the scent of hay and dust filling your senses, you understand that your life is a performance, and you have forgotten none of your lines today. Perhaps tomorrow you will be as lucky. Now just listen to the silence of the ancient night. If you drift off, comment with the time you finally fell asleep. The silence of the night gives way, not to a rooster's crow, but to a different kind of alarm. It is the deep, groaning ache in your own bones. Before the first hint of gray light touches the sky, you are awake. Because you are the baker. The village sleeps, but its stomach is a demanding master, and you are its servant. You move through the cold darkness of your small bakery, the air thick with the ghost of yesterday's bread and the sharp, living scent of the sourdough starter. A bubbling, breathing thing you tend to more carefully than a child. Your hands, dusted in a permanent layer of white flour, plunge into a mountain of dough. The work begins. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. It is a rhythm that has become your heartbeat, a prayer spoken not with words, but with the force of your shoulders and the strength of your back. The only sound is the wet slap of the dough against the wooden board and your own steady, rhythmic breathing. The fire in the great stone oven is a ravenous beast, and you must feed it. You shove wood into its glowing maw, feeling the wave of heat that licks at your face and forearms, a dry, blistering kiss that has left your skin permanently flushed and tight. You know this heat intimately. You can read its moods by the color of the flames and the way the air shimmers above the stones. Too cool, and the bread will be dense and pale, earning you the scorn of every housewife. Too hot, and the crusts will blacken, a sin that wastes precious flour and invites accusations of carelessness, or worse, of trying to hide a poor-quality bake. So you watch, you wait, you feed the beast, your entire world reduced to this small, sweltering room, this dance of flour, water, and fire, while the rest of the world dreams. Push, fold, turn. The muscles in your arms burn, a familiar fire that mirrors the one in the oven. As you shape the loaves, your movements are automatic, honed by thousands of repetitions. Each one must be nearly identical in weight and form, for the village watches. They will compare your loaf to their neighbors, and any perceived favoritism, a slightly larger portion given to the blacksmith's wife, a darker crust for the weaver, becomes a seed of resentment. It's a quiet, daily judgment performed over breakfast tables. You slide the loaves into the oven's fiery belly with a long wooden peel, a gesture as practiced and solemn as a priest at an altar. For a few moments you can rest, leaning against the flour-dusted wall. You eat your own breakfast. A piece of yesterday's bread, hard as a rock, softened by dipping it into a cup of weak, bitter ale. This is the baker's paradox, to be surrounded by the most wonderful smell in the world, the scent of fresh baking bread, while your own stomach rumbles with hunger for something, anything else. Now, let the heat of the oven fade. Feel a different element take its place. A deep, penetrating cold. You are no longer the baker. You are a miner. The sun is a rumor, a story told by others. Your world is a narrow tunnel deep in the earth, lit by the sputtering, greasy flame of a single tallow lamp that casts more shadows than light. The air you breathe is thick with the taste of stone dust and damp earth, a gritty film that coats your tongue and the back of your throat. Your day is measured not in hours, but in the swing of a pickaxe. The shock of the impact travels up the wooden handle into your hands, your wrists, your shoulders, a jarring, percussive rhythm that echoes in the close, claustrophobic dark. Chip, 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 a spray of stone shards against your face. The sound is swallowed by the immense pressing silence of the rock all around you. You work alongside others, but you are utterly alone in your bubble of flickering light. You can hear the distant, rhythmic echo of their tools, the coughs and grunts of their labor, but you rarely see their faces. To speak is to waste breath, and breath is a precious commodity in the thin, stale air of the deep earth. There are rules here, far older than any magistrate's decree. You do not whistle in the tunnels, for it is said to mock the spirits of the rock, the knockers, who will answer by making the timbers groan and the ceiling shift. You share your meager lunch, a hunk of dry bread and a piece of hard cheese, in absolute silence, listening for the trickle of dust that signals a coming collapse, for the whisper of gas that can steal your breath in an instant. Your life depends not on strength, but on hearing the earth's subtle warnings. The work is mind-numbing, a relentless assault on the body. Your back is a permanent arch of pain. Your lungs are slowly, imperceptibly turning to stone from the dust you inhale day after day. You see a boy, no older than 10, his face smudged with soot and exhaustion, hauling a basket of rock that seems heavier than he is. His cough is a wet, rattling sound that seems too old for his small frame. There is no grand purpose here, no glory. There is only the rock. You swing your pickaxe again and again. The movement is all you are. The sound is all you know. You are not a man. You are a part of the process. A human tool chipping away at the planet's bones for a few coins that will barely buy you enough food to gather the strength to come back and do it all again tomorrow. Now, leave the crushing dark of the mine and step into a different kind of confinement, a large, long room filled with a deafening clatter. You are a spinner, a woman among dozens of others. The air is not filled with stone dust, but with fine, tickling fibers of wool and flax that catch in your throat and cling to your clothes. The noise is a physical force, the rhythmic, relentless clack-clack-clack of the looms, a mechanical monster with 100 shattering wooden teeth. It is a sound that will follow you into your sleep, the soundtrack to your exhausted dreams. Your hands are a blur of motion, teasing and twisting the raw fibers into a continuous, even thread. Your fingers are raw, calloused, and often pricked by the spindle, but you cannot stop. The overseer walks the aisles, his eyes missing nothing. A thread that is too thick or too thin or snaps from inattention means a dock in your pay. Your world is the small space in front of you. The pile of raw wool, greasy and smelling of sheep. The spinning wheel that whirs and hums under your foot. The growing bobbin of thread, a testament to your endless, repetitive labor. You eat your lunch where you sit, a cold, greasy oatcake and an apple, its sweetness, a brief, shocking pleasure in the drab monotony. You exchange a few whispered words with the woman next to you, a fragment of gossip about the Reeves' daughter, a complaint about the price of salt. But you never stop working. Your hands continue their dance, your foot continues to pump the treadle. It is a form of meditation, perhaps, or a form of madness. You see the older women, their backs permanently stooped, their eyes squinting from years of focusing on the fine threads in the dim, dusty light. You are looking at your own future. The rules here are woven as tightly as the cloth itself. You do not work on another woman's wheel, even if yours is broken. You do not sing the old songs, the ones with rebellious words about lords and taxes, because the overseer has ears everywhere, and you never, ever let them see you cry. To cry is to admit weakness, to admit that the work is breaking you, and in this place, the weak are the first to be cast out. So you swallow your exhaustion, you ignore the ache in your spine and the burning in your eyes, you spin. The thread grows longer and longer, a fragile line connecting the moments of your life, pulling you from the gray light of morning to the welcome darkness of night, with no variation, no hope of change, only the endless, whirring, clattering demand for more. Feel the damp chill rise from the water. The air is sharp with salt and the potent, unmistakable smell of fish. You are a fisherman, and your day began when the moon was still high in the sky. You stand in a small, unstable boat that rocks and pitches on the gray, cold waves. Your hands are stiff and numb, chapped and raw from hauling wet, coarse nets. The work is a brutal tug-of-war with the sea. You and your companions pull in unison, your grunts and curses lost in the cry of the gulls and the rushing sound of the water. The net is a heavy, writhing beast, fighting you with the dead weight of the ocean itself. And there is no guarantee of reward. Some days it comes up full, a shimmering silver treasure of thrashing fish. Other days it is empty or tangled with useless, slimy seaweed, a bitter joke played by a cruel and indifferent sea. Every movement is governed by superstition. You never say the word pig or rabbit on the boat, for they are land creatures, and to speak their names is to invite the land to claim you back, to pull you under. You always pour the first drop of any drink over the side as an offering to the spirits of the water. These are not quaint customs. They are laws, and to break them is to risk not just your own life, but the lives of everyone in the boat. A man who scoffs at the rules will find himself suddenly unwelcome, left ashore, his livelihood gone. The sea demands respect, and your fear is a form of payment. You gut the fish as they come aboard, the boat deck slick with scales and blood. The smell is overpowering, a primal stench that clings to your skin, your hair, your clothes, a perfume you can never wash away. You see an old man in the boat with you, his face a roadmap of wrinkles carved by sun and sea spray. His hands are gnarled claws, the joints swollen and twisted from a lifetime of this work. He moves slowly, deliberately, but never misses a beat in the rhythm of hauling and gutting. He tells no stories, but his silence is full of them, of storms that appeared from nowhere, of nets that brought up things from the deep that were not fish, of companions who were taken by a single, careless wave. Your own meal is a piece of hardtack, a biscuit so hard it could break your teeth, washed down with brackish water from a cask. As you chew, you watch the horizon, that endless, unforgiving line between the gray water and the gray sky, knowing that the sea gives, but it always, always takes back. Now you are smaller, much smaller. The world smells of soot and ash, a bitter, choking scent that is the only thing you have ever known. You are a chimney sweep, a small boy chosen for this work because you can fit where no man can. Your master pushes you towards the dark, gaping mouth of a chimney. The stone is cold and rough against your bare knees and elbows. You begin to climb, wriggling your way up into the absolute, suffocating blackness. Soot rains down on you, filling your eyes, your nose, your mouth, a dry, gritty powder that makes you cough until your ribs ache. It is like being buried alive, inch by inch. Your only tools are a small brush and the scraping of your own body against the flue. You are not cleaning the chimney, you are the brush. The space is impossibly tight. You can feel the walls pressing in on you, and for a moment, a hot, sharp panic rises in your chest. The fear of getting stuck is a constant companion, a cold knot in your stomach. You have heard stories of boys who panicked, who became wedged so tightly they could not be pulled out, their cries growing fainter and fainter from within the brick tomb. So you force the fear down. You focus on the scraping, on the slow, upward movement. Scrape, wriggle, breathe. Scrape, wriggle, try to breathe. The soot is caked on your skin, a second, black layer that will never truly wash off. You are marked by your trade, an outcast even among the poor, a creature of darkness and filth that people shun on the street. When you finally emerge into the light at the top of the chimney, you are blinded, gasping for air that is clean and cool. The view of the village rooftops is breathtaking, a brief moment of freedom and perspective. You are a king on a castle of brick and slate. But it only lasts a moment. The master is shouting from below, his voice impatient. The journey down is just as treacherous. When you are finally out, you stand shivering and coughing, a small black ghost. Your pay is a slap on the back and a crust of bread, if you are lucky. You look at your hands, the soot ground deep into every line and under every nail. You try to imagine a world that is not black, a world without this choking dust, but you cannot. This is your life, a slow suffocation, one chimney at a time. The rhythm changes again. It is no longer the frantic scrape of a brush or the sharp shock of a pickaxe. It is the slow, ponderous, swaying gait of an ox. You are a carter, and the road is your home. You sit atop a rough wooden cart, the reins loose in your hands, your world moving at 2 miles an hour. The primary sound is the creak and groan of the wooden wheels, a constant, complaining song that you have long since learned to ignore. You smell the sweet scent of hay, the dust of the road, and the warm, earthy smell of the animal in front of you, your silent and steadfast partner, in this endless, tedious journey. You know every rut, every pothole, every treacherous, muddy patch between your village and the next town. This knowledge is your most valuable skill. Your days are long and lonely, measured by the slow crawl of the sun across the sky. You talk to your ox, a low, running commentary on the weather, the state of the road, the foolishness of a passing merchant. The animal seems to listen, its ears twitching, its great head nodding with the rhythm of its walk. Your meals are eaten on the move, a lump of cheese and an onion that you peel with a dirty thumbnail, the sharp taste a welcome jolt to your senses. At night you sleep under the cart, wrapped in a coarse wool blanket, with the ox tethered nearby. You sleep with one eye open, a hand on the heavy club by your side. A cart full of goods is a tempting target for desperate men, and the road is a lawless place once you are beyond the sight of a village. You are a stranger everywhere. In the villages you pass through, you are viewed with suspicion, an outsider who might bring trouble or disease. At the inns, you are given the worst food and the bed in the corner, if you can afford one at all. You are a creature of the spaces in between, belonging nowhere. You carry gossip and news from one town to the next, a walking newspaper, but you are never part of the story. You are merely the delivery mechanism. As you watch the landscape crawl by, the same fields, the same trees, the same low hills, day after day, you feel a profound sense of detachment. You are not moving through the world. The world is simply moving past you, a slow, unchanging panorama of dust and sky. The groan of the wheels is the only constant, the only song you know. Now, your slow journey as a carter comes to an end as you guide your weary ox through the gates of a larger, more crowded town. The quiet solitude of the road is shattered by a cacophony of human activity. The air, thick with the smoke of 100 hearths, also carries the sharp, rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the shouts of merchants, and a new sound, the chaotic, uneven percussion of construction. You look up, and against the gray sky, you see the skeletal framework of a new guild hall rising, a testament to the town's ambition. But this is not a modern construction site with its hard hats and safety harnesses. This is a vertical spiderweb of unseasoned timber, lashed together with rope, swaying gently in the breeze. Men scurry across narrow planks hundreds of feet in the air, their balance the only thing between them, and a very quick, very permanent retirement. You pause your cart to watch, mesmerized by the casual danger. A man leans out from the scaffolding, shouting instructions to a boy on the ground operating a crude wooden crane. A large block of stone, clumsily tied, begins its slow, swaying ascent. You can see the ropes straining, the fibers groaning under the immense weight. The men above reach for it, their movements hurried. And then you hear it, a sharp crack like a breaking bone that cuts through the noise of the town. The rope snaps. For a horrifying, silent second, the stone block hangs in the air, as if contemplating its options. Then it plummets. It does not strike a worker, a small mercy, but it smashes into the scaffolding itself. Wood splinters, and a section of the precarious platform simply disintegrates. One man, caught on the edge, windmills his arms for a moment, a frantic, useless dance against gravity, before he falls. You don't hear a scream, just the sickening, wet thud as he meets the unforgiving earth below. There is a brief, collective gasp from the street. Work stops. People stare at the broken shape on the ground. But there is no siren, no emergency response. A few of the man's companions slowly climb down. The foreman comes over, kicks at a piece of the shattered scaffolding, and swears. Not at the loss of a life, but at the delay this will cause. The body is unceremoniously dragged to the side of the road and covered with a piece of burlap. Within 10 minutes, you hear the sound of hammering resume. A life has just been extinguished, a family plunged into ruin, but the stone must still be raised, the wall must still be built. The man's value was calculated in the work he could perform, and his final contribution was a brief, inconvenient interruption. He was, in the end, less valuable than the stone that almost fell on him. You urge your ox onward, eager to leave the scene behind, and a new smell assaults your senses. It is sharp, chemical, and deeply unpleasant, a mix of ammonia and something metallic that stings the back of your throat. You have entered the dyer's district. Here, the grim reality of the world is hidden behind a facade of brilliant color. Bolts of wool and linen hang from lines strung between the buildings, glowing in jewel tones, rich blues, vibrant reds, and sunny yellows. It is beautiful, but the source of this beauty is a toxic soup. You see the dyers, their arms stained up to the elbows in unnatural hues, stirring great steaming vats with long wooden paddles. The air is thick with the fumes of the mordants used to fix the colors, alum, iron, and vats of stale human urine, collected from every household and left to ferment into potent ammonia. You notice one of the dyers, a man who cannot be older than 40, but whose body tells a different story. He moves with a slight constant tremor, and when he smiles at a customer, you see that his gums are black and most of his teeth are gone. He is working with cinnabar to create a brilliant red, a pigment derived from mercury. He does not know that the fumes he inhales every day are slowly destroying his nervous system, giving him the hatter's shakes. Another dyer works with a lead-based white, and his skin has a pale, sickly pallor, his stomach in a constant, cramping agony from lead poisoning. They are artists, painting the world in vibrant color, but they are paying for it with their health, their sanity, and their lives. They are slowly, methodically being poisoned by the very beauty they create. Leaving the colors and the smells behind, you are drawn by a deep, rhythmic rumbling. It is the town's watermill, a great stone building straddling the river. Inside, the air is a fog of fine flour dust that coats everything in a soft, white layer. The noise is deafening, a constant grinding roar of stone on stone powered by the relentless force of the river. The massive millstones, weighing more than your entire cart, spin with an unstoppable momentum. This is a place of immense power, and it is utterly indifferent to human fragility. You watch the miller, his face and clothes caked in white, skillfully guide grain into the chute. His every movement is precise, born of long practice, because a single misstep, a moment of inattention, a loose sleeve caught in the massive wooden gears, would not just injure him, it would pull him in and crush him, turning him into just another kind of grist for the mill. Now, the day has worn on, and you are hungry. You go to a baker's stall, drawn by a smell that, unlike the dyer's fumes, is universally wonderful. You buy a loaf of bread. It feels surprisingly heavy in your hand, dense and solid. You break off a piece. The texture is not light and airy, but gritty, with a strange, chalky consistency. You are eating a lie. To stretch his precious and expensive flour, the baker has employed a few trade secrets. He has mixed in cheaper ground-dried beans, chalk dust, or even fine white clay to add bulk and whiteness. Some less scrupulous bakers have been known to use plaster of Paris or sawdust. It is bread, technically, and it will fill your stomach, but it offers little nutrition and slowly clogs your insides. You chew the gritty mouthful and realize that in this world, even the staff of life can be a carefully crafted deception. You are still thirsty, so you stop at a dairy stall for a cup of milk. It looks thin and watery, with a faint bluish tint. The vendor has, of course, added water from the nearby well to increase her volume, but she has also added a pinch of chalk dust to restore its white, creamy appearance. You decide against the milk and opt for a cup of ale at a nearby stand. It is weak and bitter, and you can't help but wonder what is in it. Brewers are notorious for their own tricks. An ale that has gone sour might be corrected with a mixture of salt and molasses. To create a frothy head on a poor quality brew, some might add iron sulfate. You take a cautious sip. It tastes vaguely of beer, but also of desperation and petty fraud. It will quench your thirst, but it is a reminder that you must be on your guard with every transaction, lest you be cheated, or worse. Your gaze falls upon the butcher's stall, and here, the art of deception reaches its zenith. The smell is a potent mix of fresh blood, old fat, and the heavy, sweet scent of spices used to mask a multitude of sins. You watch the butcher work. He takes a piece of meat that looks gray and tired and rubs it with animal blood to give it a fresh red sheen. He sells sausages that are a mystery of ground-up organs, gristle, and scraps that have fallen on the floor, all heavily seasoned with pepper and sage to hide the taste of decay. He might be selling the meat of an animal that died of disease, its flesh skillfully cut to hide the telltale sores and tumors. Buying meat is an act of faith, a gamble on the butcher's honesty. You look at the plump sausages hanging in a row, and you understand that you are not just buying food, you are buying a story. You just have to hope it has a happy ending. Suddenly, a sharp, throbbing pain erupts in your jaw, a toothache. The relentless, agonizing pain makes it impossible to think of anything else. There are no dentists here, not as you would understand them. You seek out the local barber surgeon, a man who is as skilled at pulling teeth as he is at cutting hair. His solution is direct: extraction. He shows you his tool, a terrifying iron pincer called a pelican, which looks more suited to blacksmithing than to delicate oral surgery. There is no anesthetic, of course, save for a swig of strong, raw spirit, which will do little more than make you lightheaded. His other option, if you prefer, is to drill a hole in the tooth to let the toothworm out, a creature that is believed to be the cause of the decay. You wisely decline. If you seek a less violent cure, you might visit a wise woman. She will offer you a poultice to place on your cheek, perhaps made of mashed figs and dried frog. She might sell you a charm to wear around your neck, a small bag containing the tooth of a badger, which is believed to ward off dental pain. Or she may advise you to follow a more complex ritual. On a Friday, You must find a snail, prick it with a needle, and touch the needle to your aching tooth, then bury the snail. As the snail decays in the earth, so too will your pain. The cure is not based on medicine, but on a form of sympathetic magic. Faced with the choice between a blacksmith's tool in your mouth and burying a snail, the snail suddenly seems like a rather sensible option. The pain, however, persists, and it is now accompanied by a fever. The diagnosis from the town's physician is clear: your humors are out of balance. You have an excess of blood which is making you hot and feverish. The cure is obvious and universal: bloodletting. You are made to sit in a chair while the physician, or more likely the barber surgeon, makes a neat incision in the crook of your arm with a small, sharp knife called a fleam. He watches impassively as your blood, your very life force, drains into a brass bowl. The goal is to remove the excess, but the amount is determined by little more than guesswork. You grow pale, weak, and dizzy. The physician nods sagely. This is a good sign. The sickness is leaving your body. You have been treated, not by healing, but by being brought closer to death. It's a miracle anyone here survives long enough to die from old age. Your fever, born from the physician's misguided cure, does not break. The world dissolves into a dizzying swirl of heat and chills, the pain in your jaw a distant, throbbing echo. Consciousness comes and goes in ragged waves, until you wake, not in your own bed, but on a narrow pallet stuffed with lumpy straw. The sheet beneath you is coarse linen, and it smells faintly of sweat, sickness, and lie. You are in a hospital, but you must immediately banish any modern image that word conjures. This is not a place of healing. This is a place of waiting. A great stone hall where the poor and the friendless come to die under the watchful eye of God, and more immediately under the pragmatic gaze of the nuns who run this establishment with quiet, unyielding efficiency. The air itself feels heavy, a thick soup of smells that you breathe in with every shallow gasp. There is the sharp metallic tang of blood, the cloying sweetness of infected wounds, the sour scent of unwashed bodies, and the ever-present, earthy smell of the straw that serves as everyone's mattress. Beneath it all is the faint, clean aroma of incense, a futile but constant attempt to mask the scent of human decay with the perfume of heaven. The only sound is a chorus of suffering, a symphony of quiet misery. The wet, persistent cough of the man to your left, the low, feverish moaning of the woman across the aisle, the rustle of straw as someone shifts in a futile search for a position that does not ache. You turn your head slowly, the effort immense. The man in the cot next to you is engaged in the slow, methodical process of disappearing. This is consumption, the wasting sickness. His skin is stretched tight and translucent over his cheekbones, and his eyes, large and luminous with fever, seem to burn with a desperate, knowing light. He is politely coughing his lungs into a scrap of linen, each gentle spasm bringing up a fleck of bright, arterial red. He does not rage against his fate. He is simply being consumed, bit by bit, a candle flame slowly starved of its wax. He offers you a weak, skeletal smile, a gesture of camaraderie in this final waiting room. In this world, tuberculosis is not a disease to be cured. It is a long, drawn-out poetic tragedy, and he is in his final act. Across from you, a woman thrashes against her thin blanket, her lips cracked and dry, muttering to people who are not there. This is jail fever, or typhus, a sickness born from the filth that is an inescapable part of life, carried by the lice that are everyone's constant companions. A few days ago, she was likely healthy, and then a sudden, violent fever took hold, followed by a splitting headache and a strange, mottled rash that now covers her body. Her delirium is a form of mercy, protecting her from the reality of her own undignified end. The nuns will sponge her forehead with cool water and murmur prayers, but they know, as everyone knows, that the fever must simply run its course. It will either break or it will break her. The odds are not in her favor. A bell tolls somewhere in the distance, signaling the start of a new day. A nun moves down the long aisle, her footsteps a soft, rhythmic shuffle on the stone floor. Her face is a mask of serene neutrality. She is not here to offer false hope or to perform medical miracles. She is a manager of souls on their final journey. She carries a wooden bucket of water and a cloth, moving from bed to bed, wiping a face here, offering a sip of water there. Her movements are efficient, economical, honed by years of witnessing every possible way a human body can fail. She is a shepherdess, and her flock is the dying. Her task is not to save them from the wolf, but to make sure they are facing the right direction when it comes. She stops at a bed near the far end of the hall. The occupant is still, unnaturally so. She places a hand on his forehead, a simple, diagnostic touch. Then she makes the sign of the cross over his chest, her lips moving in a silent prayer. Two burly men, lay brothers who handle the more physical aspects of this place, appear as if from nowhere. There is no ceremony, no panic. With a practiced motion, they wrap the body in its own blanket, lift it from the pallet, and carry it away through a door at the back of the hall. A life has ended, but the routine of the ward is barely disturbed. The man with consumption watches them go, his bright eyes following the procession, perhaps calculating how many more mornings he has before the brothers come for him. Breakfast arrives. It is not a meal designed for nourishment, but a ritual to mark the passing of time. A young novice, her face still fresh and unaccustomed to the sights and smells of the ward, brings you a wooden bowl of thin, watery gruel. It is little more than boiled oats and water, with no salt, no honey, no flavor at all. It is warm, and it is wet, and that is the extent of its virtues. You eat it slowly, the rough spoon scraping the bottom of the bowl. For many here, this will be their last meal. For you, it is a reminder that you are still, for now, among the living. The act of swallowing, of taking sustenance, is an act of defiance against the decay that fills the air all around you. Just as you finish, there is a commotion at the entrance. A family is bringing in their son, a boy of about 7. His face is a swollen, terrifying mask of red pustules. It is the speckled monster, the smallpox. A wave of palpable fear ripples through the ward, a collective intake of breath. This disease is a lottery of disfigurement and death. The boy is burning with fever, crying, not from the pain, but from the horror of his own reflection in his mother's eyes. She leaves him on a freshly emptied pallet, her tears tracing clean paths through the grime on her cheeks, and then she flees. She cannot stay. To stay is to invite the monster into the rest of her house. The boy is now an offering, left at the altar of public health, such as it is. The nuns show no fear. They cover the boy with a clean blanket and begin to sponge his feverish skin. They do not understand the mechanism of contagion, the invisible seeds of sickness that now fill the air. They believe disease is a miasma, a bad air, or a punishment from God for sins known and unknown. Their faith is their shield, and their duty is their command. They will tend to the boy, knowing that 9 out of 10 who catch this virulent form will die. And if they survive, they will be left with a face like a cratered moon, a permanent reminder of their victory. It is a form of biological roulette, and the house, in this case, almost always wins. The morning wears on. The light that filters through the high, narrow windows is thin and gray, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, each one a potential carrier of disease. You lie on your pallet, a spectator in this theater of mortality. Your own toothache has faded to a dull background throb, a trivial complaint in this hall of horrors. You watch as a nun changes the dressing on a man's leg wound. He is a carpenter who slipped with an adze. The wound is not healing. It is festering, weeping a thick, yellowish pus. But this is not seen as a bad sign. The physician would call it laudable pus, a sign that the body is correctly expelling its bad humors. The cure, in their eyes, looks exactly like the disease getting worse. She cleans the wound not with water, which is seen as dangerous and likely to cause a chill, but with strong, cheap wine. The alcohol, by sheer chance, acts as a crude antiseptic, one of the few effective treatments that happens entirely by accident. She binds the leg with fresh linen strips, her touch gentle but firm. The man groans, his knuckles white as he grips the sides of his pallet. Pain is not something to be eliminated. It is something to be endured. It is seen as a penance, a trial to purify the soul. His suffering, in a way, is considered part of the cure. A painless recovery would be viewed with deep suspicion, as if some part of the spiritual transaction had been skipped. Midday arrives, marked by another tolling of the bell. The sounds of the town filter in from outside, the rumble of a cart on the cobblestones, the shout of a merchant, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. These are sounds from another world, a world of work and commerce, a world of the living. Inside this hall, time has a different quality. It is thick and slow, measured in heartbeats, in ragged breaths, in the drip of water from a leaking spot in the ceiling. You are no longer a part of that outside world. You are a citizen of this small, quiet republic of the sick. And your only job is to lie here and contend with the slow, methodical mutiny of your own body. Lunch is served. It is bread, and a thin broth that tastes vaguely of cabbage. The bread is dark and heavy, but it is real food. You chew it slowly, making it last. You see the nun, who tends to the smallpox boy. She sits by his side, dipping a corner of a cloth into the broth and touching it to his cracked, swollen lips. He is too sick to eat, too lost in his fever to know she is there. But she does it anyway. It is an act of profound, almost illogical compassion. She is not trying to save his body, which she knows is almost certainly lost. She is tending to his soul, offering comfort in the face of the inevitable, a final, gentle human touch before he is handed over to God. The afternoon brings a new kind of drama. A man is carried in, screaming. He is a stonemason, one of the men you saw working on the guild hall. A block of stone has fallen, not on him, but beside him, and the shock of it made him fall from the scaffolding. His leg is bent at an impossible angle, the white shard of a broken bone piercing through his trousers and skin. The barber surgeon is summoned, a man whose skills with a blade are applied equally to hair, beards, and limbs. He arrives with a leather roll of tools that clatter ominously when he sets them down. He examines the leg with a practiced, dispassionate eye. His verdict is swift and absolute. Leg must come off. There is no operating theater, no anesthetic. The procedure will happen right here, in the middle of the ward, a piece of public theater. The two lay brothers are called again. Their job is not to assist, but to hold the man down. They are human restraints. The screaming man is given a leather strap to bite down on, and a large swig of raw spirit to dull his senses, though it will do little to dull the pain. The barber surgeon selects a small, sharp saw from his kit. He makes a quick, deep cut through the muscle and sinew, and then he begins to saw through the bone. The sound is the most terrible thing you have ever heard. A wet, grating noise that seems to go on forever, punctuated by the man's muffled, animalistic screams. The rest of the ward watches in a mixture of horror and fascination. This is a visceral reminder of their own fragility, of how quickly a life can be unmade. The barber surgeon works with a grim, focused efficiency. He is not a monster. He is a craftsman doing a difficult job. When the leg is finally severed, the screaming stops, replaced by a deep, shuddering sob. But the ordeal is not over. The bleeding must be stopped. An iron poker, glowing red from a nearby brazier, is brought over. The surgeon presses the searing hot metal against the stump of the leg. The smell of burning flesh fills the hall, a sickening sweetish odor that eclipses all others. The man mercifully faints. The procedure is a success. Now he just has to survive the infection that is almost certain to follow. As the light begins to fade, a quiet descends upon the ward. The day's dramas are over. Now begins the long, uncertain vigil of the night. A nun moves through the hall, lighting a few tallow lamps that cast long, flickering shadows on the stone walls, making the familiar space seem strange and menacing. The faces of the sick seem gaunt and skull-like in the wavering light. The evening prayers begin. A low, rhythmic Latin chant fills the room, a sound that is both comforting and deeply mournful. It is a lullaby for the dying, a final piece of order imposed on the chaos of failing bodies. You close your eyes and listen, the ancient words washing over you, a language you do not understand, but whose meaning you feel in your bones. The night is the worst time. The darkness erases the distractions of the day, leaving you alone with your pain and your fear. Every cough, every groan, every rustle of straw is amplified in the immense, listening silence. You can hear the ragged, shallow breathing of the man with consumption. You can hear the delirious muttering of the woman with typhus. You can hear the soft, whimpering sounds of the boy with smallpox. It is the sound of a room full of people losing their battles, each in their own private, lonely way. Sleep is not a refuge. It is a surrender, a temporary death from which you are not entirely sure you will return. You lie awake, staring into the oppressive darkness, and you wait for the dawn. But not all battles are fought in this public hall. Most, in fact, are fought in the quiet terror of your own home. Think of childbirth. When a woman's time comes, she does not go to a hospital. The birthing room is a private, exclusively female domain. The midwife is summoned, a woman who is not a physician, but a general in this intimate war. She is often old, her face a web of wrinkles, her hands gnarled, but surprisingly strong. She brings not a medical bag, but a collection of folk wisdom, practical experience, and deeply ingrained superstitions passed down through generations. She is the keeper of the mysteries of birth, a process that is seen as both a miracle and a potential death sentence. The air in the birthing room is thick with steam from boiled water, the scent of herbs meant to ease the pain, and the raw animal smell of labor. The midwife's instructions are a mix of practical advice and magical ritual. She may have the mother grip a rope hanging from the ceiling, or tell her husband to open every lock and untie every knot in the house, a form of sympathetic magic to ensure an easy passage for the child. She knows how to turn a breech baby, how to handle a cord wrapped around a neck, and when to simply wait and let nature, in its brutal, indifferent way, take its course. She is the only thing standing between the mother and the abyss. And the abyss is always close. 1 in 3 children will not live to see their first birthday. And the mother's life hangs by a thread. A hemorrhage, a fever that comes on a few days later, an infection from an unwashed hand. Any of these can be fatal. Every birth is a gamble, a roll of the dice against fate. When the child is finally born, its first cry cutting through the tense silence, there is a moment of profound, exhausted relief. But the midwife's work is not done. She examines the afterbirth with the critical eye of a fortune teller, looking for signs and portents. A healthy birth is a blessing, but it is a blessing that everyone knows is fragile and temporary. The shadow of the graveyard looms over every cradle. If your ailment is less dramatic than a broken leg or childbirth, you would not risk the hospital. You would seek out the local healer, the wise woman who lives at the edge of the village. Her home is a single dark room that smells of wood smoke, drying herbs, and something else, something wild and earthy. Bunches of plants hang from the rafters, yarrow for staunching blood, willow bark for fevers, foxglove for the heart, though she does not know how it works, only that it sometimes does. Her cures are a blend of this practical herbalism and pure theater. She might sell you an amulet to ward off the evil eye, or instruct you to drink the 7th son of a 7th son's bathwater to cure your cough. Her medicine is based on the doctrine of signatures, the belief that God has marked plants to show their purpose. Lungwort, with its spotted leaves that resemble a diseased lung, is for respiratory ailments. Eyebright, with its delicate, eye-like flower, is for vision problems. It is a beautifully poetic system of medicine that has absolutely no connection to reality. But your belief in the cure is half the cure itself. The ritual, the strange-tasting potion, the comforting words of the wise woman. These things have a power of their own. She is a better psychologist than she is a physician, and in a world with so few real cures, a little bit of hope, however misplaced, is a potent medicine. But whether you die in the ward, in the birthing bed, or in your own home after a healer's failed potion, the final destination is the same, the cemetery. It is not a peaceful, manicured park. It is a crowded, functional plot of land, churned by the constant digging of new graves. You pass by it now, having somehow survived your stay in the hospital, your fever broken, your tooth now mercifully gone, pulled by the barber surgeon in a moment of agonizing clarity. The graveyard is a small, silent village, more populous than the one you live in. Most of the graves are unmarked, their occupants forgotten by everyone except the earth that holds them. A sexton is at work, his shovel slicing into the damp soil. He is not digging a fresh grave in a new plot. He is reopening an old one. Space is limited, and the dead do not get to keep their real estate forever. After a few years, a grave is considered vacant, its previous tenant having returned to dust. The sexton unearths a few brittle, yellowed bones, which he casually tosses onto a nearby pile. This is the charnel house, a grim repository of anonymous human remains. Soon, they will be moved to a common ossuary, a final, jumbled democracy of death. You watch him work, and you understand that in this world, life is a temporary loan, and the earth always collects its debts. You walk away from the graveyard, the image of the sexton's casual work etched behind your eyes, and you feel the chill of your own mortality. But the village, like a great lumbering beast, has already moved on. Its attention has shifted from the finality of death to the fraught, complicated promise of new life. A wedding has been announced. The banns are read in the church, a dry public declaration that sounds less like a celebration of love and more like a legal notice for a property transfer. For 3 consecutive Sundays, the names of the young woman and the old man she is to marry are spoken into the still, sacred air. This is not a romantic formality. It is a challenge. It is a public invitation for anyone to come forward and declare a pre-existing contract, a hidden debt, a secret child, or any other inconvenient truth that might invalidate this union. You watch the faces in the pews, a sea of feigned indifference that hides a frantic churning of calculation and gossip. The preparations begin, and the entire village becomes a stage for a grand performance of communal harmony that barely conceals a web of bitter rivalries. The bride's family must provide a feast, a display of prosperity they likely cannot afford, plunging them into debt for years to come. You watch women gather to bake, their conversation a delicate dance of compliments and veiled insults about the quality of another's flour or the richness of her butter. A pig is slaughtered. It squeals a brief, bloody interruption to the festive air. The bride herself is kept in a state of ritual seclusion, forbidden from seeing the groom. Her wedding dress is being stitched, and a whole new set of rules applies. A spider found on the dress is a sign of good luck, but a single drop of her own blood from a pricked finger is a terrible omen. The weather itself is scrutinized as if it were a divine judgment on the match. A sunny day is a blessing. Rain means a life of tears. The wedding day arrives. You stand in the crowded, musty-smelling church, the air thick with the scent of unwashed wool and the faint, sweet perfume of dried flowers. The ceremony itself is a masterpiece of social theater. The bride is led to the altar, her face a pale, unreadable mask. She must not appear too eager lest she be thought shameless, nor too reluctant, lest she insult her new husband's family. The vows are exchanged, a series of promises that have more to do with obedience, property, and the production of heirs than with affection. It is a merger and acquisition, sanctified by God. You watch the groom, a wealthy widower with land that adjoins the bride's father's, place a ring on her finger. You notice the subtle glances exchanged between the two families, the quiet nods of satisfaction. The deal is done. The assets have been consolidated. The feast that follows is a social minefield. You find your place on a long, rough-hewn bench in the great hall, the air already warm and loud. The seating arrangement is a brutally precise map of the village hierarchy, and a single misplaced person could trigger a week-long feud. The best cuts of the roasted pig go to the magistrate and the priest, then to the families, then to the landowners, and so on, down the line, until the tough, gristly end pieces are left for you and the other common folk. Ale flows freely, loosening tongues and lowering inhibitions. The music starts, a high, thin sound from a fiddle and a drum, and the dancing begins. But you notice a group of young men in the corner, their heads together, their laughter too loud. They are not celebrating. They are plotting. The official part of the day is over, but the community's judgment is about to be rendered. Later that night, you are woken by a hellish cacophony. It is the charivari. A crowd has gathered outside the newlyweds' home, a grotesque orchestra of noise. They are banging pots and pans, ringing cowbells, and blowing horns. A relentless, deafening assault on the peace. This is not a harmless prank. It is a ritual of public shaming, a violent expression of the village's disapproval of the match, the old man and the young bride. Some of the men wear crude masks made of leather or bark, their faces twisted into demonic leers. They chant lewd verses about the groom's age and the bride's supposed motives. This is the community's way of enforcing its unwritten laws about who should marry whom. The noise will not stop until the groom comes out and pays them off with money or ale. a fine levied not by a court, but by the tyranny of his neighbors. This mixture of the sacred and the profane is the very heartbeat of your social life. A few weeks later, it is the feast day of your village's patron saint. The day begins with a solemn procession to the church, the air hazy with the sweet, cloying smell of incense. You walk with your neighbors, your face a mask of piety, your voice joining in the droning Latin chants. But the moment the religious service is over, the village square explodes into a carnival. The sacred awe is replaced by a secular, riotous joy. There are wrestling matches in the mud, archery contests, and a greased pole that men try to climb to win a ham. The taverns overflow, and the line between celebration and debauchery becomes hopelessly blurred. You see the same people who were kneeling in pious prayer an hour ago now, roaring drunk, singing bawdy songs and settling old scores with their fists. Amid the chaos of the festival, you see a traveling peddler hawking cheap, poorly printed sheets of paper. These are broadsides, the primitive internet of their day. He shouts out the headlines, his voice raw and compelling. One tells the tale of a monstrous birth in a neighboring county, a child born with the head of a pig, a clear sign of the mother's sin. Another, quoting a popular pamphlet you've heard of, warns that a recent comet is a divine harbinger of plague and war. A leaflet from not long ago even claimed that bathing more than once a year was a dangerous act that opened the pores to disease. You watch people gather around, their faces a mixture of fear and fascination, and you see how easily a rumor, once it is given the authority of print, becomes an unshakable truth, a new fear to be added to the ever-growing list. This fear of the outside world is mirrored by a deep suspicion of the world within your own body. Hygiene, as you would understand it, does not exist. The village well is the source of all your water, for drinking, cooking, and washing, and it is likely contaminated by the runoff from the nearby pigsty. You perform your morning ablutions in a small wooden basin, the same water used by everyone in your household. The concept of personal space is a luxury no one can afford. And the smell, the ever-present background smell of human life, a complex bouquet of wood smoke, stale sweat, and poor sanitation, is something you no longer even notice. To be clean is to not be actively covered in mud. You scrub your clothes with harsh lye soap once a month, a process that strips the fabric and leaves your skin red and raw, but it is a necessary ritual to keep the lice at bay. You end your day, as many do, at the tavern. Here, under the low, smoke-blackened beams, the social rules are different, but no less rigid. The air is a thick, palpable fog of pipe smoke, spilled ale and roasting meat. You never sit at a table uninvited. You understand that accepting a drink from another man places you in his debt, a social contract that must be repaid. You listen more than you speak, for the tavern is the village's clearinghouse for information. A careless word spoken here can destroy a reputation by morning. You watch a heated argument over a game of dice, and you see how quickly camaraderie can curdle into violence. The tavern is the one place where the strict hierarchies of the day can be temporarily relaxed, but it is a fragile truce, a volatile bubble of warmth and noise in the cold, dark night. As you walk home through the muddy, unlit lanes, the sounds of the tavern fading behind you, you are left alone with your thoughts. The village is quiet, but the air still hums with the day's tensions. The wedding, the shaming ritual, the festival, the whispers sparked by a printed page. You have successfully navigated another day, avoiding the invisible tripwires of custom and superstition. You have shown the correct amount of joy at the feast, the proper piety at the procession, and the right degree of silent caution at the tavern. You slide the bolt on your door, the sound loud in the silence. You are safe in your small, dark home, but you know that the village is always watching, its collective memory holding a perfect record of every word, every action, every tiny misstep, waiting for the one that will finally unravel everything. But that world, with its suffocating web of silent agreements, could not last forever. It did not collapse in a single glorious revolution. It simply began to fray, thread by invisible thread. A traveling scholar, his mind filled with radical new ideas from a distant city, might quietly suggest that laws should be written down, consistent for everyone, not subject to the mood of the magistrate or the grudge of a neighbor. This idea at first is terrifying. It is an attack on tradition, an insult to the memory of the elders. But the seed is planted. A merchant, tired of being cheated by a dozen different systems of weights and measures in a dozen different towns, might argue for a single royal standard. He is accused of trying to ruin honest men, but his logic is a slow-acting poison to the old ways. These were not heroes. They were simply tired, frustrated people, pushing back in small ways against the crushing absurdity of their world. And from these small pushes, great changes are born. If you now eat a piece of bread without the gritty texture of chalk dust or ground clay, it is because one of those forgotten councils finally passed a law in a size of bread that allowed inspectors to storm a bakery, test the loaves, and drag a dishonest baker through the streets with his adulterated loaf tied around his neck. If you drink a glass of milk without wondering if it is whitened with chalk, or a pint of ale without fearing it is laced with chemicals to create a false foam, you owe a small, silent debt to the generations of anonymous consumers who complained, who fell ill, who demanded something better. These were not grand human rights movements. They were humble, desperate battles for food that was simply what it claimed to be, a fight for the right not to be slowly poisoned by your daily meal. This slow dawn of reason extends beyond the marketplace and into the very air you breathe. The hospital ward, with its symphony of suffering, eventually gives way to a new understanding. The idea that disease is a punishment from God is slowly, painstakingly replaced by the radical notion that it might be caused by something tangible, something that could be fought. The first clumsy attempts at public health are met with ridicule. A decree to move the pigsties outside the village walls is seen as an attack on a man's property. The suggestion to build a sewer system is dismissed as an impossible expense. But the plagues and the fevers are a powerful argument. The simple, unthinking act of turning on a tap and filling a glass with clean water is a quiet monument to 1,000 forgotten struggles against the tyranny of the contaminated well and the slow, invisible violence of filth. The invisible laws of social conduct also begin to dissolve under the harsh light of a new age. The charivari, that brutal ritual of public shaming, is eventually outlawed, not because it is cruel, but because it is a threat to public order, a form of justice that belongs to the mob, not the state. The power to punish is slowly taken from the hands of your neighbors and placed in the hands of a distant, impersonal court. And with this shift, something is both lost and gained. The suffocating intimacy of the village, where everyone knew your business, is replaced by the cold anonymity of the town. But in that anonymity, a new kind of freedom is found. The freedom to marry for love, not for land. The freedom to be different, to be eccentric, to simply be left alone, was a right purchased with the slow erosion of the village's all-seeing, all-judging eye. And yet, the ghosts of that ancient village still walk with you. Its legacy is woven into the fabric of your modern world in ways you rarely perceive. The unwritten rules of your workplace, the subtle shifts in hierarchy, the fear of saying the wrong thing in a meeting. This is the ghost of the Guildhall, where a careless word could mean your ruin. The carefully curated performance of your life on social media, the constant, low-grade anxiety about the judgment of strangers, the public shaming of those who violate the unspoken rules of the digital tribe. This is the charivari, reborn in light and code. The village is gone, its thatched roofs and muddy lanes turned to dust, but the human need to belong and the human fear of being cast out are as powerful as they have ever been. But for now, let those ghosts fade. Feel the weight of their world lift from your shoulders. The night that surrounds you now is not filled with the fear of a neighbor's judgment or the sound of a ritual shaming. It is a quiet, private darkness. The sounds you hear are the gentle hum of a world at rest, a world of comforts and protections those people could never have imagined. The bread in your kitchen is safe. The water from your tap is clean. The law, for all its flaws, does not condemn you for the color of your clothes or the volume of your grief. You have survived your journey through their world of invisible tripwires and quiet terrors. Now, all that is left is to rest in the safety they unknowingly built for you, one slow, painful, and necessary change at a time. Breathe in their legacy, and breathe out into the peaceful, silent night.